The sky turned orange as fire rained from above. Cities once peaceful were now broken. Alien warships covered the clouds, hiding the sun and crushing human defenses. Buildings cracked, smoke rose, and the screams of the innocent echoed across the burning streets. The war wasn't announced. It simply began. Talon Briggs was nobody. Just a maintenance worker at Dock 9. No special skills. No fame. Just a man who woke up, fixed things, and went home. He didn't even own a weapon. He didn't need one. Not until that day. He was inside a broken hangar, rewiring an old launch pad when the first blast hit. The ceiling cracked. A section collapsed. He ran outside and saw the sky bleeding fire. Above him, strange shapes floated in the air. Metallic, silent, deadly. People were running. Some screamed for their children. Others simply froze, unable to understand what was happening. Talon grabbed a young boy by the arm and pulled him from a collapsing bench. The boy didn't even thank him. He just ran. Talon kept moving. He had no plan, no weapon. But he couldn't stand still. Something inside him pushed forward. He reached the outer perimeter where the fires were thickest. And that's when he saw her. She was on the ground, pinned under a chunk of steel. Her skin was green, glowing faintly through the smoke. Long purple hair fell over her shoulder. She looked different, alien, but her eyes were full of pain. She didn't cry out. She simply looked at him. Talon's heart pounded. Was she the enemy? Was this a trick? But when the ground shook again, he made his choice. He ran to her. Flames licked the edges of the steel block. The heat burned his arms. He didn't stop. With both hands he lifted the debris. It was heavier than anything he'd ever moved. Muscles screamed. Sweat poured. But he gritted his teeth and heaved. Slowly, painfully, the block shifted. She gasped and slid free. Her dress was torn. She couldn't stand. Talon scooped her up. She was light, lighter than she looked. He carried her through the smoke, past fallen structures and broken glass. She coughed once, then whispered something he didn't understand. Her voice was soft, musical, almost human. Behind them, another blast hit the road. Talon stumbled but kept going. His eyes stung. His lungs burned. But he didn't slow down. He didn't know why. He just knew she had to live. He reached an abandoned shelter, kicked the door open, and set her down gently on a clean patch of floor. She looked up at him with wide, shimmering eyes. Then she placed a hand on his cheek. Talon flinched. Her fingers were warm, not cold like he expected. She said a few more words in her strange tongue. Then, to his shock, a soft golden light rose from her hand and spread across his arm. His burns faded. He stared at his skin. The wounds were gone. Even the bruises vanished. She had healed him without machines, without tools, just a touch. His breath caught in his throat. Then she spoke again. This time in broken English. "You are not soldier. Why save me?" Her voice was shaky but strong. He couldn't answer. He didn't know what to say. She wasn't like the warships. She wasn't here to destroy. Talon leaned back, exhausted. "You needed help," he said. Simple words, true ones. She looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. A real smile. Not human, but warm enough to melt ice. In that moment, the war outside faded for him. For the first time in his life, someone saw him. Not as a nobody, but as someone who mattered. And in that burned-down shelter, something between them had just begun. Talon woke to the sound of distant thunder, but it wasn't thunder. It was another blast. The shelter shook slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling. He sat up quickly, heart racing. The green-skinned girl was still there, resting against the wall. Her eyes opened as if she had already sensed danger before he did. "You rest long," she said in broken English. Fire coming again. Her voice was calm. Too calm, as if war didn't scare her. As if she had lived through many. Talon stood, checking the door. Outside, the smoke was thicker now. The sky looked bruised and heavy. And in the distance, shadows. Moved tall, unnatural shapes walking through fire like it was air. He turned back. "We need to leave." He looked at her bruised leg. "Can you walk?" She tried to stand. Her knees buckled, but she steadied herself by holding onto the wall. "I can, but slow." Talon moved beside her and let her lean on him. He didn't care how slow they had to go. He wasn't leaving her. They moved out of the shelter and followed the ruined path east. That's when the sounds changed. The distant booming was no longer random. It came in steady patterns. Organized, it meant something. Talon realized then they weren't just bombing, they were searching. The girl tensed. "They follow me," she said. "My ship crash. They want me not alive." She glanced at him, her face tight with guilt. "They will kill you too." Talon didn't stop walking. "Then they'll have to try." His voice was low, firm. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. She was running from her own kind. Soon they reached the edge of a collapsed building. A steel beam blocked their way. Talon gently helped her sit against a wall and climbed over it. On the other side was a half-burned transport truck. It looked old, but maybe it could still run. He opened the cabin door and coughed as black smoke poured out. Inside was the driver, dead, burned. Talon closed his eyes, reached in, and turned the key. The engine clicked. Then again. On the third turn, it roared to life. He jumped down, ran back to the girl, and lifted her again. She didn't protest. Her hand gripped his shoulder tightly, but she said nothing. The silence between them was not cold. It was trust. He placed her in the passenger seat and climbed in beside her. As they drove forward, the streets grew more twisted. Cars were flipped. Rubble was everywhere. But something else filled the air, fear. The kind that sinks into the bones. Then the road cracked. A blast from above sent their truck spinning. The vehicle flipped and slammed into a wall. The glass shattered. Talon's head hit the wheel. Blood trickled down his forehead. The girl was unconscious beside him. He groaned, pulled himself up, and checked on her. She was breathing, but her lip was bleeding. He wiped it gently. "Not today," he whispered. "You're not dying today." He kicked open the door and dragged her out. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed closer. From the smoke came a tall creature in black armor. Its face was covered, and in its hand was a glowing spear. Talon stood in front of her, fists clenched. He had no weapon, no plan, just his will. The alien raised its spear. Talon didn't move. His legs shook, but he stayed between it and the girl. The spear hissed with heat. Then suddenly, it stopped. The creature paused. Its mask tilted slightly. Then it spoke. "Human. You do not understand who she is." Its voice was deep, metallic. "She is a danger to all. She carries the key." Talon narrowed his eyes. "I don't care what she carries. She saved me. And I won't let you take her." The creature took a step forward. Talon prepared for death. Then the girl stirred. Her eyes opened. She raised a hand and whispered in her own language. Light burst from her palm. The creature screamed and dropped the spear. Talon wasted no time. He picked up the girl and ran into a narrow alley. They collapsed behind a steel gate. Breathing hard, heart racing. The girl looked at him, her skin glowing faintly again. "You protect me," she said, "even when death come." He nodded slowly. "I didn't plan to, I just did." Her eyes filled with something strange. Not fear, not sadness, something softer. She reached for his hand. "The key they seek is in me, but it only opens with heart, yours." Talon blinked, confused. She smiled weakly. "You're not nobody, not anymore." And as the war burned behind them, something greater had begun between the fire and the smoke. Talon's hands were shaking. His skin burned where the fire had licked his arms. But his grip around the alien girl remained strong as he led her deeper into the dark alley. Rubble and metal scraped under his boots. Behind them, the armored creature lay stunned, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. The girl's glow was fading. Her body trembled. She leaned against his chest and whispered, "We must reach the Nexus. I can stop them there." Talon didn't know what a Nexus was, but her voice left no space for doubt. He checked the sky. Drones buzzed above like metal insects. Their red lights blinked as they scanned the wreckage below. Talon ducked beneath a collapsed awning and shielded her with his body. The hum passed over them, then moved on. He waited for silence before standing. The girl's breaths were shallow now. "We need shelter. You're losing strength." She shook her head and pointed toward the city's edge. "Nexus lies beneath mountain. 5 kilometers. We must move." Talon looked down the broken road. Fires danced in the distance. The path ahead was not safe, but it was their only chance. He adjusted her weight and started walking. His feet ached. His back screamed. Still, he moved forward. Around them, the war continued. Buildings fell. Screams echoed. Explosions painted the sky orange. But Talon ignored it all. His world had shrunk to the sound of her breathing and the beat of his heart. They passed a market, where alien soldiers were rounding up civilians. Talon pulled her behind an overturned cart. He watched as the soldiers scanned each person, tossing aside anyone not useful. He clenched his jaw. The girl reached for his arm. "This is not your war," she said softly. "You can still run. Leave me. Live." Talon looked at her, eyes steady. "If I run now, I'll still be nobody. If I stay, I fight for something." She looked away, hiding her face for a moment. Then she nodded. "Then we go together." Her hand squeezed his wrist, weak but full of meaning. Once the soldiers moved on, they snuck past the ruined street and reached a broken bridge. The center had collapsed, leaving a 5-meter gap. Below, flames roared like an angry sea. Talon scanned the edges and spotted a fallen pipe stretching across. "I'll carry you," he said. Her eyes widened. "It's not safe." He smiled. "Just a little. Neither is staying here." He stepped onto the pipe slowly, balancing with one hand gripping a bent railing. Each step was careful, measured. The wind blew ashes into his face. Midway across, the pipe creaked. The metal groaned. His boots slipped slightly. He shifted his weight, tightened his grip, and pressed forward. The girl buried her face against his neck. She whispered something in her own language, a prayer or a goodbye. But they made it. Talon dropped to his knees once they reached the other side. His legs shook, his back ached. But he laughed once, just to feel alive. The girl looked at him with a strange expression. "You do not know what waits at Nexus," she said. "Yet still you walk toward it." "I don't need to." "No," he replied. "I trust you." Her expression softened. "No one's ever said that to me before." She leaned forward and rested her forehead against his. For a brief moment, the war faded again. They continued toward the mountains. The air grew colder. The city fell behind them. The stars began to appear in the dark sky. Talon knew the soldiers wouldn't stop, but something inside him had changed. He wasn't running from fear. He was running with purpose. They reached a tunnel carved into the base of the mountain. Strange markings lined the walls. The girl's fingers traced them lightly. "This place was hidden before your kind walked upright. Now only I can open it." She pressed her palm against the center stone. A ripple of light spread through the tunnel wall. Slowly it opened, revealing a glowing hallway of crystal and steel. Talon stared in disbelief. "What is this place?" The Nexus, she answered. The heart of the old galaxy. Buried, forgotten. Until now. As they stepped inside, the door sealed behind them. Silence wrapped around them. For the first time in hours, there was peace. Talon sat her down on a glowing bench and inspected the small cuts on her arms. She didn't pull away. They fear me, she said. Because I carry what they lost. A code, a memory, a truth that could end the war. Talon leaned back, breathing slowly. Then we better protect it, she smiled. We? Not I? You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Not while I'm breathing. She looked at him for a long time, and something deep inside her shifted. He may have been a nobody. But now she held onto him like he was everything. Asterisk, the glowing hallway stretched far below the mountain. Talon walked beside her slowly, his boots echoing against the smooth floor. The air felt charged, like energy pulsed through the walls. He couldn't tell if it was magic or science, but the place felt alive. The girl moved with more strength now. Her wounds had healed faster inside this strange place. The light seemed to react to her presence. Whenever her fingers brushed a wall, symbols lit up and danced across the surface. Talon asked, "What is this place really?" She stopped and looked at him. "It is more than a nexus. It holds the old code. My ancestors buried it here before the war began. The code chooses peace. They feared what power would do in wrong hands. And now they're hunting you for it," Talon said. She nodded slowly. "Yes, because I didn't give it to them. I escaped instead. I chose the harder path. They call me traitor." She turned away, her voice quieter. "I thought I would die alone for it." Talon stepped closer. "You didn't." She glanced at him. The silence between them felt heavy again, but not empty. It was filled with understanding. As they reached the heart of the nexus, the walls opened into a wide chamber. It pulsed with blue light. A crystal structure hovered in the center. The girl stepped forward and knelt before it. Her hands touched the glowing base. The crystal responded, sending waves of warmth through the air. "The code is waking," she said. "But it needs more than me. It needs a second." She turned to Talon. "You," he blinked. "Me? I'm not special. I don't have powers. I'm just a repair tech." She smiled gently. "The code does not choose power. It chooses heart. You risked all for someone you didn't know." Talon stepped toward the crystal. It shimmered as he approached. "What do I have to do?" he asked. She took his hand and placed it beside hers on the base. "Only trust. The rest will follow." The light spread from their hands, wrapping around them. Talon felt something deep inside his chest shift, like a door he didn't know was locked. Had been opened. Memories that weren't his flickered in his mind stars being born. Civilizations falling, promises made and broken. He gasped and stumbled back. The girl caught him. "You saw," she said. "Now you understand. This war is not about planets or weapons. It's about truth. The kind that can break empires." Talon stood still, his mind racing. Then why not just share it with everyone? "Because truth without wisdom brings chaos," she said. "And those who hunt me want control, not peace." Suddenly, the chamber darkened. The walls trembled. A voice echoed through the nexus. "You should not have come here." It was deep and cold. Talon turned toward the entrance. 3 armored figures stepped from the shadows. One of them carried the glowing spear from before. The girl stepped in front of Talon. "You're too late. The code is awake." The leader raised his weapon. "Then we take it now along with your lives." Talon pulled her back and looked around. "Is there another exit?" She shook her head. "Not one we can reach fast." The soldiers moved in. The chamber's light pulsed rapidly. Then the crystal floated higher. Its glow sharpened into a narrow beam that hit Talon's chest. A wave of force knocked the attackers back. The girl stared at him. "It chose you, fully. Talon looked at his hands. Energy sparked across his skin. What does this mean? It means you are no longer nobody, she whispered. You carry the memory of peace. The attackers recovered and charged again. Talon raised a hand. The energy from the crystal shot outward. It didn't kill. It didn't burn. It stopped them in place, freezing their weapons mid-air. The soldiers collapsed, dazed but breathing. He fell to one knee, panting. The girl rushed to his side. You're not trained to hold that much power. Rest. Let it settle. He nodded. His body ached, but his heart felt strangely calm. You were meant to be more, she said. The code saw it before even I did. Talon looked at her, eyes steady. Then let's finish this. Let's end the war. The chamber responded to his words. Doors opened on the far side. Beyond them, a staircase led to the surface. The girl helped him up. Together, they moved forward. The war outside was still burning, but something had shifted. And the ones who once ruled with fear would soon face the strength of a man who was no longer afraid. The staircase led to a narrow path carved into the mountain. The night air hit Talon's face like a slap. He inhaled deeply, each breath cold and sharp. The stars above seemed brighter here, untouched by smoke. But beneath that beauty, war still echoed across the land. The girl held his arm to steady him. Though the Nexus had given him strength, it had also drained him. His legs felt heavy, but his will remained strong. They'll come again, he said. Stronger. She nodded. But now we carry the truth, and the truth defends itself. As they reached the edge of a cliff, they saw the valley below. Fires lit the horizon like a bleeding wound. Drones swept across the sky in formation. And in the center of it all stood a towering spire of black steel. Their command center, she said. They broadcast fear from there. Talon's eyes narrowed. Then we shut it down. She looked at him, uncertain. You're not a soldier. He nodded. But I know machines. That's their weakness. They trust their systems too much. They moved down the slope under cover of darkness. Talon scanned the terrain, noting power lines and signal repeaters. He had worked with systems like this on Earth. Even alien tech followed patterns. Machines always did. They reached a checkpoint near the base of the spire. Guards in black armor patrolled the perimeter. Talon motioned for the girl to stay low behind a broken wall. He crawled forward and examined the control panel near the fence. Its locks pulsed with blue light. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a tool he had kept since Doc 9. It was old, human-made, but reliable. With steady hands, he connected 2 wires and overrode the pulse frequency. The gate blinked once, then slid open silently. He waved the girl forward. They slipped inside and stuck to the shadows. Inside the spire, everything was colder. The air buzzed with artificial energy. Screens lined the walls. Commands in alien script flashed across them. But Talon saw something else. Fear, the officers. Here were rushing, shouting. They knew something had changed. Talon moved to a control room. The door was locked. The girl stepped forward and placed her hand against it. Her palm glowed. The door melted open. I still have some of its power, she said. Not much, but enough. Inside, dozens of screens showed the battlefield. Human forces were scattered, disorganized, but they were still fighting. Talon spotted a signal tower built into the spire's roof. That's where they send commands. If we overload it, we can blind their army. The girl studied the controls. We can do more. The code can pulse from it. Broadcast the truth across every screen, every speaker, even to other worlds. Talon stepped back. Would they listen? They won't have a choice, she said. Truth speaks louder than orders. Talon nodded. He set to work. His fingers danced across the alien interface. The system resisted, but he pushed harder. He bypassed firewalls, redirected currents, looped pathways. The girl stood beside him, eyes closed, guiding him with her presence. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights filled the room. "They found us," he said. The door behind them slammed shut. Heavy footsteps approached outside. The girl opened her eyes. "I'll hold them. You finish this." "No," he said. "We do this together." She stepped beside him, placed both hands on the console, and poured the last of her energy into the system. The crystal in her chest glowed brightly. Talon redirected the surge through the tower's core. The building trembled. Outside, soldiers reached the door. One struck it with a plasma blade. Sparks flew. Inside, the console flashed. "Just a few more seconds," Talon whispered. The tower's top began to pulse. A deep hum rose from its walls. Then the screens changed. Across the planet, the enemy's signals were replaced. The code's voice spoke through the machines. It wasn't in any one language, it was in many, all at once. A voice of unity, a message of peace. Soldiers dropped their weapons. Ships paused in mid-air. Some wept. The spire's doors burst open. Armed guards stormed in, but stopped when they saw the glow around Talon and the girl. Their weapons dropped. Some knelt. One spoke softly. "You carry the old voice. We thought it was dead. It lived," she said. "Because someone chose kindness." Talon turned and looked at her. Her skin was pale now, her energy spent. "Are you all right?" She smiled weakly. "Yes, because it's no longer mine alone." The spire had fallen. Not through violence, but by truth. And the world began to change from that moment. Asterisk, the sky over the battlefield began to clear. Where fire once ruled, silence now grew. Ships hovered in stillness, unsure whether to continue or retreat. Across the broken cities, the alien command links had fallen silent. The message had gone out. Not a weapon. Not a threat. Just a voice. Talon stood in the control room of the spire, looking out through the high glass panels. Smoke drifted lazily across the ruins, but in that smoke, there were no more strikes. No more orders to kill. The system that once pushed war had been severed from its core. Behind him, the girl lay resting on a bench made of crystal. Her skin shimmered softly, her chest rising slowly. She had given nearly everything to make that broadcast happen. Talon stayed close, watching her breathe. He heard footsteps behind him, slow, careful. He turned to see one of the armored guards from earlier, no weapon in hand. The alien warrior removed his helmet. His skin was dark blue, his eyes glowing. Softly, "You were chosen by the code," the alien said. "We never expected it to pick a human." Talon didn't speak. He wasn't sure if he should answer. The alien stepped closer. "We followed orders for decades, never questioned." "When?" "She ran with the code. They called her a traitor. But she never gave up on us." Talon finally replied, "She didn't give up on anyone." "Not even me," the guard nodded. "And now many are waking." The broadcast reached far. It touched more than minds. It shook hearts. Others began arriving. Scientists, soldiers, civilians. They stepped into the spire carefully, unsure what to expect. The girl stirred slightly. Talon knelt beside her and helped her sit up. Her eyes blinked open. "Is it done?" she asked quietly. Talon smiled and nodded. "It started." She sat up straighter, breathing deeper. "Then we must lead them. Truth is not enough. It must be lived." Together they stepped out of the control room and into the open hall. Faces watched them. Mixed expressions, confusion, awe, hope. The girl lifted her hand. "You are free now," she said. "No chains, no orders. Only choice." One of the older soldiers stepped forward. "And what if some still choose war?" Talon answered. "Then we choose peace harder." His voice was clear, steady. The soldier nodded slowly. Talon didn't feel like a hero. He still wore the same clothes, stained with smoke and blood. He still limped when he walked, but eyes now looked at him with respect. Because he had stepped forward when no one else did. The girl turned to him and spoke gently. There's something else. A final node, buried deep beneath the spire. It's ancient. Older than even my people. It watches, records, we must see it. He followed her down a narrow stairwell hidden behind a sealed panel. The air grew colder with each step. The walls changed, less steel and more stone. Symbols older than any known language carved the surface. They entered a chamber lit by a single glowing orb. In its center was a pillar. On it, a pulse of slow energy beat like a heart. The girl stepped closer. This is the source, the first code. It holds the original choice. Talon asked, what choice? She placed both hands on the pillar. To reset, or to renew. She turned to him. If we reset, all systems collapse. The enemy's armies vanish, but so does everything built after. Billions would die. And if we renew? Talon asked. Then we guide, carefully, slowly. The path is harder. But life continues. She looked at him. Only one who carries the code can decide. Talon stepped forward. He didn't hesitate. Then we renew. The orb pulsed brighter. The chamber filled with golden light. A warmth spread through their bodies. They returned to the surface. Outside, the sun was rising. Its light touched the broken towers gently. People gathered around the spire. Some knelt. Others watched in silence. The girl raised her voice. We are not enemies. Not anymore. This world begins again. Not with destruction, but with choice. Talon stood beside her, not a soldier. Not a leader, but something stronger. A man who dared to act when it mattered, and the galaxy had started to notice. The sun lit the horizon with golden fire. Ash still floated in the air, but the silence carried a different weight. Not fear. Not surrender. Something unfamiliar to this world. Hope. Talon stood at the foot of the black spire, surrounded by beings of all shapes and colors. Humans from nearby shelters had come. Alien warriors lowered their weapons and removed their masks. For the first time since the war began, they breathed the same air without reaching for blood. The girl stood tall beside him. Her skin had recovered its glow. Her voice, when she spoke, echoed clearly across the crowd. This world was broken not by weakness, but by silence. We stayed quiet when lies rose. We obeyed when cruelty ruled. That ends now. Talon glanced across the faces gathered around them. Some still wore expressions of doubt. Some wept, many just stared. You don't need to follow us, he said. We're not your rulers, we're just the first to say no. A general stepped forward. His armor bore scars from many battles. He looked at Talon with sharp eyes. If we follow you, where does it lead? Talon didn't answer right away. He looked at the rising sun, then back at the general. It leads to rebuilding. It leads to slow change. It leads to choices that hurt, but also heal. The general nodded once. Then maybe that's the only war worth fighting. The girl raised her hand. From the spire, a soft blue light rose into the sky. It spread outward, passing through towers, craters, machines, and ships. It didn't burn. It didn't blind. It erased the command codes that bound entire armies to false orders. Across the stars, systems blinked. Fleets turned silent. Officers looked to their soldiers and saw no instructions. Only faces. The power that once moved millions like puppets now dissolved. Inside the spire, the old systems collapsed with grace. The source didn't fight. It accepted the choice. Talon felt it like a weight lifting from his chest. A door inside him closing gently, not slamming shut. He turned to the girl. What now? She smiled at him. Not the weak smile of exhaustion, but a real one filled with belief. Now we walk forward. Together, A ship landed nearby, not a warship. A carrier for the wounded and the displaced. People began stepping into it, carrying little but each other. The girl helped a young alien boy climb aboard. Talon assisted a limping soldier from a fallen outpost. Suddenly a young human woman approached them. Her arm was in a sling. She held out a broken communication unit. "Are you the ones who sent the message?" Talon nodded. She looked at the girl and whispered, "Thank you. My sister was in one of their camps. She's free now." The girl touched the woman's shoulder gently. "Thank him," she said. "He carried me when I couldn't walk. He faced death when I had no strength." Talon looked down, uncomfortable. But the woman bowed her head. "Then thank you for not giving up." Later, in the quiet that followed, the girl stood at the edge of the spire's platform and looked out at the valley. Her voice was soft. "Do you remember when you first saw me in the fire?" Talon nodded. "I thought you might be the enemy," she nodded. "And I thought you'd run, but you didn't." He stepped beside her. "You didn't give up either." She reached out and took his hand. The warmth between them said more than any words. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about the code. It was about a connection built in fire, grown in trust, and sealed in choice. Around them, the world slowly moved. Ships lifted. Families reunited. Soldiers unarmed themselves. It would not be easy. It would not be fast. But something had changed. The silence had broken. Talon looked at the stars above. "You think others heard it too?" She nodded. "They did. And more will come. Some with fear. Some with curiosity. But the voice of the code is awake again, and it chose you." He didn't answer. He just stood there, hand in hers, watching the sky open wide, and far beyond the mountains, a signal carried their story across the stars. The sun hung high now, casting light on the city ruins that once smoldered with war. In every corner of the land, machines powered down, weapons were abandoned, and people slowly stepped out from hiding. But peace was not yet a promise. It was a seed. And seeds needed care. Talon sat under a broken tower beside the girl. The walls around them were cracked, yet something about the silence made it feel sacred. The people trusted him now. Not as a leader above them, but as someone who stood with them. Scouts returned from distant zones with news. Some units of the enemy had not surrendered. Others had disappeared into the wilderness. A few had started forming new orders, unsure how to survive without commands. It was not over, but it was changing. The girl spent her time teaching. She showed engineers how the code had been hidden in their own systems. She worked with doctors to heal those who had been altered by forced implants. And at night, she sat quietly beside Talon, telling stories of her people's lost history. One evening, a council of mixed races gathered. They asked Talon to speak. He stood in the center of a round hall, his clothes still marked with dust and ash. "I'm not a general," he said. "I don't have all the answers. But I know what I saw." He told them of the fire, of the moment he lifted the girl from beneath the steel, of how everything changed the moment he chose not to walk away. Sometimes the right path doesn't look grand. It looks small, quiet, but it grows. The council listened. Some nodded. Some wiped tears from their cheeks. And in that moment, they didn't see a human or a former nobody. They saw someone who had carried the future on his shoulders without ever asking for it. Later that night, Talon walked the edge of the new settlement. Lights had returned to the streets. Children played beside open fires. Alien and human families shared food. But shadows still moved at the edge. Fear didn't die in a single day. He returned to the spire where the girl waited. She stood on the same platform where they had first broadcast the truth. Her eyes met his as he stepped beside her. "There are some who want to crown you," she said gently. Talon raised an eyebrow. "Me? Why?" She smiled faintly. Because you didn't want it. He looked out at the horizon. They need builders, teachers, not rulers. She nodded. Then teach them. Lead by living. In the days that followed, Talon and the girl traveled to the outer zones. They walked through camps where distrust still held tightly. They sat with the wounded, shared food with former enemies. One soldier asked him, "How did a human break our chain?" Talon answered, "By seeing the one behind the armor, and not hating what I saw." The girl worked beside him, hand in hand. The power inside her was no longer a burden. It was a guide, and wherever she stepped, the air changed. Not because of fear, but because of hope. A year passed. The Black Spire became a school. The council expanded. No throne was built. No crown was made. Talon refused statues. The only tribute he accepted was a single garden where the fire had once burned. In the center of that garden stood a tree with silver leaves. The first of its kind. Beneath that tree, Talon and the girl often sat in silence. She once said, "Do you miss your old life?" He replied, "Sometimes." It was simpler. But this feels right. One evening, a message came from the stars. A distant system had heard the broadcast. They asked for help, not with war, but with healing. The council prepared a ship. The girl looked at Talon. "Shall we go?" He didn't hesitate. "Let's take the peace with us." They boarded the vessel. No guards, no banners. Just two people who had once been strangers in the fire. No bearers of light. The engines roared quietly, and the ship lifted toward the sky. Below them, the garden swayed in the wind. The silver leaves caught the sun. And every eye that looked up saw something they had never imagined possible before. Talon carried her through the smoke. A future.